In this video, I'm going to go through the homework problem dice game. In this game, there are two players and they roll the dice, which is six-sided. Every time they roll the dice, there is going to be a result, whatever number is on the dice. For instance, in this example, we have the first time they roll the dice, they get 5, 6, then they get 6, 6, 4, 3, and 5, 2. Both of them, they start with 100 points. The way the game is played is the following. Whomever gets the higher points, the other one, which is the loser, is going to lose the amount of points which is on the winner's dice. For instance, in this case, obviously 5 is less than 6. So the first player loses 6 points. Both of them, they start with 100 points. So in the first roll, the first player loses 6 points, so it's negative 6. The next time they get 6, 6. When they have the same number, nothing happens. So there won't be anything lost here. The next one is 4, 3. Obviously, the first player, which is 4, wins. So this means the second player loses 4 points. So it's going to be negative 4 here. The next game, they get 5, 2. The first player gets 5, so he wins. So this means the second player loses 5 points, so negative 5. And the game is over, so we are going to add them up. 100 minus 6 is 94. 100 minus 4 is 96, minus 5 is 91. So our app has to display 94, 91. Now, to accomplish this problem, remember that we have a text box which is a multi-line, and the user enters 5, 6, 6, 6, 4, 3, and 5, 2. And then there is a process button here. When this button is clicked, this is the input to the app. First, we have to be able to split the input, which is this one, so I can get lines of data here. To split, I have to split it for next line or new line. In App Inventor, the character which specifies the next line is \n. Okay, so this one is next line. When I split the input by next line, I'm going to get a list. So my list is then going to have, based on this example, 4 inputs: 5, 6, 6, 6, 4, 3, and 5, 2. Now to process data, I also have to split every line of the list by comma. So I have to have two lists here. The first list is going to split the input, and then the next list is going to have the individual scores. So I have to have two lists. So let's go ahead and start creating the app. Now let's go ahead and try to create the app. Start a new project. Let's call it Dice App. Change the title of the screen to Dice App as is shown here. Drag and drop a horizontal layout. Then drag and drop a label and just type enter roles separated by comma, whatever you want to type. And then a text box. Make sure the text box, the hint is blank. There is nothing there. Also, I just changed the name of the text box. I made a mistake. Let's change it roles txt. meaning this is a text box. And then drag and drop a button, change the name to process btn underscore btn, and also the text to be process. And also drag and drop a notifier so we can show or display the final answer to the user. That's all we have to do with the screen. Now let's go and design the app. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce a few variables here. The first variable I'm going to introduce, I'm going to call it David, which you can call player1 or anything you want, and I'm going to set it to 100. The next variable I'm going to create, I'm going to call it Antonio, and I'm going to set it to 100. Again, you can call it player2, or based on the problem, player1 to be Antonio and player2 to be David. The next variable I'm going to create, I'm going to call it roles, which represent all the roles in the game. Since this is going to be a list, I'm going to make it an empty list. Another one, and I'm going to call it round. This is going to be individual round of the play. So these are the four variables I introduced. Now I'm going to start with the code when the button is clicked. Since the user can play more than once, I want to make sure that David is always set to 100 at the beginning. And also Antonio is going to be set to 100. Now, remember the variable roles is going to have individual game, individual roles of the dice. So I'm going to set roles to create an empty list. And then I'm going to set roles to be the split of the input. So I'm going to set roles, and I'm going to use the split function, and I'm going to use the split here, and I'm going to use the text, the values inside the text box, and I'm going to split it at \n, which is individual lines. Now I'm going to go through a loop and I'm going to process. So I'm going to go through the loop, but this time the loop that I'm going to use is for each item in this roles list. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go through each item of the roles. So the roles, and I'm going to get for each item in the roles. Now for each item in the roles, I'm going to use the global one, the global round, and I'm going to set the global one to the split of this item at comma. So I'm going to duplicate this one, put it here, take this one out, and I'm going to get this item and then split it with comma. Now this round is going to be a list of two items. The first one is what the Antonio has rolled, and the second item is going to be the value that David got. And then I'm going to compare them. So the comparison is going to be a long one. So I'm going to say if. Now to compare, I have to use the math operator. And because it's going to be a long one, I'm going to make this one to external inputs. So it's going to be right on top of each other. And this is going to be, let's say the first one is greater. So I'm going to say if select list item, and the list is going to be my round. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to use list round, and the index is index 1. So I'm going to go up, and index 1 is greater than the same round but index 2. This means that I know that Antonio got a bigger number than David. So this means I have to update David's value. So I'm going to say here, set David, bring it down, and then I'm going to say subtract whatever David had before. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to get this block, and I'm going to say whatever David has, we have to subtract the value that Antonio got. So I'm going to duplicate this one, and I'm going to say subtract round and 1, because 1 is Antonio. Again, this is a long piece of code, so I'm going to make it external input. This is for the first case. Now for the second case, I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to bring else if not else, because there is another condition which says if they are equal, and I don't want that one. So I'm going to say else if. Now I'm going to duplicate this one again and put it here. Now I'm going to say if the first, which is Antonio, is less than the second one, which is David, then I'm going to duplicate this one. And now I'm going to update Antonio. And I'm going to set the value of Antonio to be select list item, but this time I'm going to say 2. So I'm going to get Antonio and subtract whatever David got. And that concludes this part. So everything is okay. Now the last thing I have to do is to use the notifier and to show the message. So I'm going to put 1 here. Now the text, the title, I'm going to say, let's say Dice app, and the text I'm going to say okay. And what I'm going to show, I'm going to show the score for Antonio first, then space, then the score for David. So I'm going to use a join one, but I need 3 sockets here. The first one is the value that the score of Antonio. The next one is going to be space. So I'm going to get this okay, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to put a couple of spaces here, and then I'm going to put David. That completes our code. Now we are going to go and test to see if the code works, hopefully. Okay, for the testing part, we have the values of 5, 6, 5, 6, 4, 3, 6, 6, 4, 3, and 5, 2. If I click process, it's telling me that Antonio is 94 and David is 91, which is exactly like what the problem is showing here.